like everything is ready to rock and roll when it comes to that. So I'm excited. Oh man. This is great radio. What's going on, guys? Welcome on into Fantasy Intervention. Oh yes. Get excited for yet another episode. We're bringing it right to your front doorstep. We're whispering sweet nothings into your ear. And of course, with me, since it is Thursday, I have my good friends, Dave and Juan. What's going on, fellas? How y'all doing today?
Doing good, man. Happy to be here again.
Dude, I love this episode, man. This is the episode where we dive into it and we just crush number after number after number and figure out the analytics side of things. And you guys teach me a thing or two every week, and it actually kind of helps me out with my DFS episode as well because of the fact that, hey, you guys are giving me straight facts over there, and you guys are giving me insights as to where these games could end up going. So real quick, before we do dive into the episode, I do want to give you guys an opportunity to tell everybody where they can find you, shout out your Twitter handle, all that other stuff. So go ahead.
Go for it, Dave.
All right, man. You can find me at the Pregame HQ where I'm writing articles. You could also find me at joinourcircle_. And then you can find me on Twitter at DKLUGE90. And lastly, you can find me on Fantasy Pros where I work on their news correspondence desk, bringing you up-to-date information on all the latest news.
Love it, man. Absolutely love it. You're crushing the game over there too, man. Love your quick shots, loving everything that you're doing with this show and how you actually write up the show sheet. It's absolutely amazing.
Thank you, man.
So Juan, what's going on, man? Where can everybody find you?
You can find me at TIR_pod or at joinourcircle_. But I want to shout out to you two guys because like you said, Chase, my favorite part of this is that I learn something every week. Like I learn so much by doing these deep dives on my own, but the sheet that Dave prepares plus what you bounce back off of us in this, it's absolutely amazing what we learn every week. And I look forward to doing this and doing the deep dive, deep notebook and all, like lots of notes.
Real deep.
But yeah, real deep. So I'm at FF One of a Kind at TIR_pod, and you can find me there.
Love it, man. Absolutely love it. So let's go ahead and dive into this episode. We got a crazy matchup tonight, don't we? Like this matchup tonight is going to be absolutely insane.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have the entire 49ers team, completely beat up, just absolutely torn up. And then we have on the other side of things with Jamal Williams and A.J. Dillon, they're both out, right? Aaron Jones is a game-time decision. There's a lot of things going on with this matchup, man. So I want to hop over to the Green Bay side of things. And, yeah, I want to bring up, like, Dexter Williams and Tyler Ervin. Dexter Williams over, 2 seasons so far in the league has only seen, like, 5 rushes for 11 yards. And guess what, man? Those 49ers, they're really good on the inside. Meanwhile, they struggle up against pass-catching running backs. So which guy are you guys going with? What's your thoughts on Dexter Williams in particular?
Well,
if Aaron Jones is out.
Well, even before we got this Aaron Jones news, I was staying away from Dexter Williams. It's scary when you see that some guys only had 5 carries for his entire career. So there's no chance that I'm starting him. He's been relegated deep into the depth chart for a reason. And sure, he can get lucky and punch a couple touchdowns in, but I think the Packers are going to rely on Aaron Rodgers' arm before they put their faith in either a 4th or 5th string running back or an injured Aaron Jones. The 49ers, they haven't really been shutting down the pass the same way that they did last year. There's 10 teams that are giving up less points to opposing wide receivers than the 49ers so far this year. But they are number 1 against the run. So Williams and Irvin, they're going to be given some volume possibly, and you might make a case for starting them. But I'm just personally avoiding it. You could probably do worse, but I wouldn't expect too much from any of these running backs tonight. There's just way too much uncertainty for me to feel confident rolling any of these guys out.
What are you thinking, Juan? How are you sitting on this? Because Dexter Williams is an interesting prospect coming out of, I believe it was Notre Dame, if I'm correct. Juan, is he with us?
I don't know. Do we lose Juan here for a minute?
I think we lost him. So let's go ahead and bounce over, right? But sorry, Juan, you're out. We can't hear you. His face is doing all sorts of weird things. All right, let's go ahead and hop over to the next guy real quick. The Packers, right? They're coming off a brutal division loss last week to the Vikings, largely in part because Dalvin Cook absolutely tore the Packers up. Like, it was ugly, man. He's got another great matchup this week up against the Lions. Is there a single running back that deserves to be ranked ahead of Dalvin Cook this week, or is Dalvin Cook the wheels up type go?
Well, I'll take this one just because it looks like Juan's having a few connectivity issues right now. But so not only is Dalvin Cook my running back one for this week, but I've actually got him as my RB1 for the rest of the season now. He's got 779 scrimmage yards, which is the third most in the league.
About that, and the prospect was great, but you haven't really.
Is this his old audio coming in?
I think so.
All right, go. This is gonna be fun editing.
Yeah, man. So the craziest thing about him being third in scrimmage yards is that he's only played in 6 games. He was injured for one. He already had his bye week. But the craziest thing is that he's seen a ton of loaded boxes. So on average, the Vikings opponents are putting 7.3 defenders in the box on run plays, which is the third highest in the league. And even with that type of attention, Cook is still averaging 5.3 yards per carry. So for running backs with over 100 carries, Derrick Henry's 4.8 is the next closest. Cook is averaging a whole half yard more than he is per touch. Cook has also evaded 51 tackles this year, which is the most in the league. He's had a breakaway run of 15 yards or more in 4 of his 6 games already. He's just dominating the red zone. He's dominating goal line carries when the Vikings get there, and he's leading the league in touches per game. So if we were redrafting right now, I think Dalvin Cook would probably make a pretty good case for going number 1 overall. His previous injuries and his contract disputes kind of pushed him down draft charts this season, but I don't think there's anybody that you could rate over Dalvin Cook right now.
Well, he did spend a couple weeks injured over there too, so that was interesting, but he's always going to miss 2 or 3 games in a season. That's just how Dalvin Cook is. He's not like Zeke where he's going to play every single game and grind out yards for you every single game. So, Juan, do we have you back yet? Nope. Still no. Oh, man. All right, so let's go ahead and hop over to our next guy. Let's go ahead and look at getting to face off against the second worst rush defense in back-to-back weeks. This is a dream matchup for fantasy managers when we talk about Dalvin Cook. Now, he should have another nice week up against the Lions. It's the Lions. But the big story out of this game was DeAndre Swift just getting 6 carries last week. After his week 6 explosion, I was huge on Swift, man. I had Swift everywhere. Now, obviously, the Colts have a lot tougher run defense over there, so I wasn't expecting like a huge game out of him, but I did expect more than 6 carries. He has 28 rushing yards over 15 carries in weeks 7 and 8 combined. So how are you feeling about him in this matchup in Minnesota or against Minnesota?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what I expected with the Lions, but Swift has been a disappointment. The kid is just oozing with talent, and after he had that huge week, we thought that we were going to see a lot more of that in the future. But he had just 6 carries to Adrian Peterson's 5 last week, but he did dominate the snap count and the receiving downs in a game where they were playing catch-up for most of it.
Sorry, dude.
We got you back, man?
No, I think that was his old audio. Again.
Oh, man. Well, The good news is, though, Swift saw as many targets as Kerryon Johnson and Adrian Peterson combined last week. So he played a season-high 62% of his team snaps. He just didn't get a lot of touches. This coaching staff, they seem pretty, they seem to be warming him up, and he should get better as the season goes on. I think he's a prime buy-low trade target right now, but I wouldn't expect anything more than RB2 production. So if you're trading for him and expecting him to be, this breakout RB1, I think that's a little bit overzealous as long as Kerryon and AP are still in the mix. But Indy's given up the 4th least points to opposing running backs, and Minnesota ranks in the bottom half. So now's a great time to try to snag him. He's had a couple tough matchups, and his price is probably going to go up pretty soon if he has a big game this week.
Yeah, I mean, the Colts run defense, man, they're no joke. They really aren't. We talked about that a second ago. But let's talk about the other side of the ball for the Colts, right? Jonathan Taylor, he was going like early 2nd round in some drafts, and this year, I expected him to have a big game, like especially last week in particular, but I expected him to have some big-time games. That's really not happening as often. Last week, he only mustered 11 carries for 22 yards. Meanwhile, Jordan Wilkins saw 20 carries. Now, I do know that Jonathan Taylor's snaps were higher than Wilkins, so that doesn't worry me as much. I'm curious as if they saw something in the bye week, and that's why they ended up opting to go with Jordan Wilkins over JT, as they actually planned this out. So what are you thinking over there? Like, what's going on in the Colts system with this running back committee?
I should try one more time. Can you hear me now?
Oh, you're good.
Hey, we got
yes. Listen, so to answer that question, I don't think it's a committee. I don't think Jonathan Taylor's job is at all in jeopardy. But the outlook this week particularly is a little bit grim. At full health, I would highlight the fact that he has 13.2 fantasy points in 5 of his last 7 games. and that the Ravens do allow 22.8 fantasy points to the running back. So, but given his injury and the usage of Wilkins, I'll leave him alone for this week. But going forward, if you can acquire Taylor for a reasonable price, he's going to face Tennessee, Green Bay, Tennessee again, Houston, Vegas, and Houston for the finale. Now, none of those clubs are higher than 24th against the running back position. So he still has a chance to finish as a high-end RB2 or a low-end RB1.
Dude, that's straight fire, man. Like that schedule going forward, that's like almost as good as Montgomery, but Jonathan Taylor is actually a good running back. No.
First shot on Montgomery. Montgomery.
I didn't talk about stats or anything. I didn't talk stats, so I'm still clean for today. I'm gonna go 24 hours without talking stats. All right.
Well, you know, Frank Wright said that his snaps were limited because of an ankle problem, but I don't know if I really believe that, because even if you look before week 8, his numbers weren't really that great. You know, he exploded in week 2 with 26 carries and 101 yards and a touchdown, and it's just kind of been downhill since then. He hasn't logged more than 17 carries or 68 rushing yards in a single game. And I get the excitement in the offseason. You know, he's a great running back. He was coming behind a great offensive line. He's got a quarterback who likes to check down the ball. It just seemed like he was primed for this huge breakout. But when Mac went down for the season and people started going nuts, it just didn't really pan out. So, you know, fantasy football, it could be kind of fluky, and sometimes the projections just don't work out. So I don't think JT is a total bust. But given the RB1 production that people were expecting from him, I just don't think that's really something that we're going to see. So yeah, I agree with Juan. You know, he's gonna be a solid RB2 for the rest of the season. But I want to go trading for him, expecting him to be anything more than that.
Yeah, I mean, the Colts, man, it's been a weird situation over there. I mean, Phillip Rivers hasn't been great, but he's had some, bright spots. And, they've had some tough matchups overall. But, I mean, we have the Ravens this week. And the Ravens have been kind of spotty. Like, they've been tough in certain matchups, but not as dominant as I expected them to be. So, Dave, I know that you're freaking out about Lamar Jackson, right? Like, you're freaking out. Like, you're posting every other day about Lamar Jackson. Straight freaking out. Like, how are you feeling about him this week?
Well, I was freaking out last week, and then he went on to throw 2 interceptions, fumble the ball 3 times. So I'm full-blown panicking right now. But at this point, I think if you've got Lamar, you've got to look for a streaming option as well. Pick somebody up that you can start during his tough weeks. He's got Indiana this week. He's got Indianapolis this week. He's got New England next week, and those are tough matchups. But after that, he sees Tennessee and Pittsburgh, which are also pretty tough matchups. But from there on out, we all know about his playoff schedule. Weeks 13 through 16, he's got the Cowboys, he's got the Browns, he's got the Jaguars, he's got the Giants. So most Lamar owners are probably pretty keen to that information already. But if he struggles over the next couple of weeks, throw some offers out there and try to get him, because he's really been a boomer bust type quarterback this year. He hasn't been that 35-point lock that we were used to last year, but he torched Cleveland, torched Washington, torched Philadelphia, so he can rack up points against lousy defenses, and luckily, that's all he's going to be facing during fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, it still makes me nervous. They're forcing him to throw outside the numbers. It's tough, man. What do you think, Juan?
We're trying to make Dave feel a little bit better, bro. Like, we're not trying to make him more nervous.
My bad, sorry.
Listen, so if you've held on this long, Dave, you're absolutely right to continue to hold on to him. Like, you might as well hold on and stream when you can or when you have to. But he still gives you that great rushing floor. He's still on pace for 944 yards rushing on the season.
God.
So that kind of production gives you, a little bit of hope. And even against those Steelers that you mentioned, like in those games that he has to face a really good defense or an offense on the other side, he still had 208 yards passing with the 2 touchdowns and ran for 65 yards. So he's giving you a solid floor week to week. He's only failed to produce 45 yards rushing on 1 occasion this season. And he already has games with 83 yards rushing and 108. So with Ingram missing time, and his carries may go up due to that. And if you're going to bring him back to his 2019 MVP type season, you're going to expect to see more passing work to the running back. Andrews has to get more involved. And then that completion percentage, which dipped from 66.1 last year to 60.5 this year, should go back up to where it, normally where it should be. And if his receivers would help him out, man, like they've already dropped 13 passes and they only had 19 drops all of last year. So that could go a long way, too, to see him get back to that status. I don't know if he'll be MVP, but he should be back.
That makes sense. If he doesn't perform this week, I am going to be off of him. Like, that's what I'm going to be full-blown panic. Because, obviously, with the Colts, they got a great run defense, by the way. So they might be able to, get some pressure underneath and force him to, I guess, lose some yards. Like, end up taking some big-time losses on sacks. So it's something as to where like I'm a little bit nervous about this week. If he can't beat them outside the numbers, and the Colts haven't been good while defending outside the numbers, I don't know if I really want him on my roster moving forward after this week, although he does have an advantageous schedule. But there's a guy that I do want on my roster, and that's J.K. Dobbins. This kid's like oozing with talent, man. Like he is oozing with talent. Like it's pouring out of his veins. Like, oh my God, it's everywhere. It's oozing everywhere. His struggles so far, right, have been working his way off the depth chart, not performing well on the field. And we kind of expected that. We expected it to be a running back by committee over there. But after he gashed Pittsburgh for 7.5 yards per carry, is it possible that we see him as the workhorse in Baltimore? And
I think so, man. And right. And I think so. And before this season, I wrote it in blood that he was going to be a top 5 in redraft in 2021, or if Ingram missed any time. And so far, he hasn't disappointed. I mean, he had a stellar final season at OSU. He averaged 6.7 yards per carry. And like you said, he was oozing that superstar potential. Just the athletic ability alone is mesmerizing, right? So now it's time. I mean, he's facing that stingy defense in Indy, but his involvement in the passing game gives me reason for optimism. He's actually played 190 snaps this year. 39 of those, he's lined up as a wide receiver. He caught 23 passes in college last season, and he already has 12 this year in limited action. So with his explosiveness, I wouldn't be shocked if he served as a flex play even in this game, but I love the prospects going rest of the season.
I'm kind of curious if he lined up on the outside or if he lined up in the backfield and motioned to the outside on some of those plays. But unfortunately, I don't have access.
I would love to see that sort of breakdown, because he could have lined up outside and then come back to the backfield too. They do a lot of that motion gadgetry, but I would love to see the specifics on that.
Absolutely. All right, Dave, did you already give your 2 cents on this one, or are you up on this one?
I didn't, but I would love to, man.
Let's go ahead and let you do that then.
I think J.K. Dobbins' season is finally here. I know Juan's been hyping him up all off season. And I'm ready for it. I think it's here. I'm tempering expectations a little bit this week because there's a tough Indianapolis defense, but I think he's still going to find himself as a solid RB2 for the rest of the season by taking advantage of Ingram's time out. Now, I still love Ingram. The man's 30 years old, and he's still averaging 4.5 yards per carry this season. But Dobbins has looked insane when he's had these opportunities. He's averaging 6.7 yards per carry on the year, which is exactly what he averaged in college, like Juan had mentioned. It's also the highest rate of all running backs in the league. I believe it's Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson are the only guys that are averaging more yards per carry than he is. He's a big play waiting to happen every time he touches the ball. And the most exciting thing is he showed last week that he can handle a full workload and that he can do it against a tough run defense. So I'm keeping him locked in as an RB2 this week. And I mean, there's no way that you can get him out of my hands right now. I've got him in a few leagues, and I'm not even thinking about trading him.
Yeah, that's going to be a very interesting prospect moving forward with Mark Ingram. They're able to cut him, I believe, this year and save like $10 million. So that's something worth looking into and seeing if, and by the way, I think Edwards is a free agent as well. So it's kind of interesting to see if they'll end up holding on J.K. Dobbins, keeping Justice Hill, and then also drafting another running back later, like one of those goal line type backs like Gus Edwards, instead of spending money and re-signing it, because they have a lot of money invested in their defense. I'm very interested to see how they go about that. Now, Pittsburgh last week, they dodged a bullet by beating the Baltimore Ravens. I thought the Ravens might have had that. That didn't happen. But Big Ben actually did it by spreading the ball around. He hit Claypool a few times. He hit Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson. What are you guys thinking about this? Like, are they actually going to have value moving forward, or is he going to have to take an injury in order for you guys to, potentially own one of these guys or roster these guys and feel good playing them week to week?
Yeah, it's tough. I feel like all of these guys need to be rostered. Whether you can start them every single week is a totally different story. But if I had to rank them, I'd probably go Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, and then Claypool. Deontay Johnson's injuries have been the issue for him this season, but when he's on, he's almost filling that Antonio Brown role for the Steelers. Even taking into account the games that Deontay Johnson had to leave early, his target share favors him more than anyone. Deontay is 7.3 targets per game compared to Juju Smith-Schuster's 7.1. Deontay Johnson is averaging 9.3 yards per catch to Juju's 8.9. So really we're kind of splitting hairs between the two, but I think that Deontay Johnson just has a bit more talent. Claypool is actually leading the team with 375 receiving yards, but he's also been fully healthy for all 7 games and had a few big plays that really skew those numbers. Really, though, he's only seen 4.9 targets per game. and that makes him kind of in that boomer bust category. In half PPR, he scored under 5.7 in 3 games, and he's scored over 16.1 in 3 games. So I like Deontay and Juju for the consistency. I'd give the slight edge to Deontay. But that being said, I think they're all weekly must starts because their ceilings are sky high.
I don't know, man. Like Deontay Johnson and his injury, issues are not a small deal. Like this should be like an actual concern for people. And that could actually bump up Claypool. Juju, meanwhile, has been very, very inconsistent overall. So that kind of, worries me a little bit. But, we can see weeks, like we can see some trends, as to when he produces versus not producing. So the schedule moving forward is extremely, extremely difficult. But where are you thinking, Juan? Like, where are you leaning right now?
At the beginning of the season, I was leaning with Dave, like a lot of people were, because I see in Deontay that Antonio Brown type of role. But I'm going to flip-flop the 1 and 2, and I'm going to go with Juju for his floor. So Deontay has seen double-digit targets in the 3 games that he's seen 79% of the snaps. So in those 3 games, he totaled 23 catches on 38 targets. But in the 3 games that he was hindered by injuries, he did run 44 routes, but he only caught 6 balls. So the injury concern is what scares me off of Deontay. Yeah. And Claypool, like Dave mentioned, Claypool did splash, and then in those 5 games that he's played a higher percentage of the snaps, 65% of the snap shares are higher. He got 18 catches on 29 targets, and he scored a bunch of touchdowns, especially in that game against the Eagles. So that usage only gave him those 2 games. It was the Browns game and the Eagles game. So it's matchup dependent with Claypool. He's a flex week in and week out, maybe for me. But Juju, on the other hand, he's been in the slot 80% of the time. And we knew that coming into the season that was going to be his new role. And now he has 5.6 catches per game. So that gives you a nice little floor. And he's also 4th in the league with 9 red zone targets. So Big Ben likes to look for him down near the end zone. So I'll take the upside touchdown play with Juju and the week to week slot play with the 5.6 catches.
Did you say he's 4th in the league in red zone targets? Wow. I did not realize that.
That's awesome. That's sick. I didn't know that either. Good stat, my friend.
With 9.
I love that. I love that. So, guys, we have Dallas this week.
So he's looking for him. He just hasn't connected with him since week 2.
So they got Dallas, right? They got Dallas in a smash position. What do you guys have ranked for these receivers in the Dallas game? Just real quick.
I want to hear Juan's opinion on this.
Who has the how do you have them ranked? Oh no, we're losing them again.
Uh-oh.
No. All right.
I'm going to stick with it. Deontay Johnson's healthy, and Juan already pointed out when Deontay Johnson's healthy, he's just he kills it. So I think Deontay's probably the biggest play this week. Juju's got the safest floor, and then I'd put Claypool at 3rd.
So I'm going to go with Dave on this one. No, please. Please, no. I'm here.
I can hear you, but it's like... All right, try and do it one more time real quick. If not, then we're going to move on. Nope. All right, let's go ahead and move on. All right, let's go with, we talked about Dallas, right? So on the opposite side of the ball, Dallas is actually rolling out their 4th starting quarterback this week. Is that actually set in stone, by the way?
I think they said that who was it that started last? DiNucci?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they brought in somebody else. I don't think DiNucci's starting this week, so they should be going with
Cooper Rush. I think it's still up in the air. I don't think they've actually came out and announced it yet.
All right. But I thought Cooper Rush was already named the starter.
Either way, it's
interpreted that.
Not a great situation.
Right.
Zeke Elliott, right? He's killing me inside. This whole roster is just killing me. CeeDee Lamb was on track to hit all the projections that I had. He was on track to compete with Michael Thomas for the rookie record.
Yep.
So going back to Zeke, though, what are you doing with Zeke? Are you buying? Are you selling? Are you holding? What are you thinking about Zeke? Because, he's making people sick, man. Like, he just looks like he doesn't want to be out there.
Yeah. Juan, can you take this one?
Nope.
All right.
Oh, wait, let me try. Nope, still lagging.
All right. Yeah, at this point, I don't even know if you have Zeke, if it's even worth it to try and trade him because you're not going to get much in return. We all know, he's averaging a career low 3.9 yards per carry. He's playing with a 3rd or 4th string quarterback right now. And the thing that really surprised me, though, you'd think that would cause defenses to load the box against him. but he's actually only seeing a stacked box, which is 8 or more defenders, on 12.1% of his carries, which is 44th in the league.
Yep.
So the one good thing is that, he's got that going for him, and he's also got a league high 11 goal line carries, but I'm not sure how much the Cowboys are going to continue to get into scoring position without Dak. So if somebody's willing to give you, a solid wide receiver 1 for him, lucky you, but at this point, I don't think there's really much value for Zeke on the trade market. So your best bet is just to hold hope, ride it out, and hope that he can turn his season around with that talent.
Yeah, I'm going to be holding on him. There was a couple different offers that I saw that I might do. Like I saw one with who was Miles Sanders, I believe, for Zeke, and I might actually take that. There's another one that I saw with Chubb for Zeke, and I would probably take that as well. But unless you're getting that top end offer.
I got Terry McLaurin and David Johnson for him, and that's a combo that I'm happy with. I had a team that was decimated by injuries, and now I got 2 weekly starters for Zeke, and I'm pretty happy with that.
Okay, that makes sense. If you need depth, then that absolutely makes sense. So when we look back last week, the Eagles kept Zeke just bottled up, right, and pulled out a big win. They're on bye this week, right? But we finally got to see some Dallas Goedert action week 8. You only saw 1 target for 15 yards, but this is something as to where he kind of came out of the injury a little bit early just because they needed a tight end over there. So what are you expecting from Goedert, moving forward? Are you actually going to hold him through the bye?
Yeah, tight ends have been a crapshoot this season, but Goddard is definitely worth the hold. With Ertz out last week, the Eagles may have tried to rush Goddard back into lineups. I don't think he was fully healthy. You mentioned it. He only saw 1 target, and he just didn't look like himself. But in weeks 1 and 2, Goddard saw 9 and 8 targets. So that was more targets than any other tight end in the league besides Travis Kelce and Darren Waller. So we all know he's an integral part of this offense, and I don't think you should drop anybody with the upside that Goddard has. His Week 10 matchup after the bye is against New England, who's given up the 8th most points in the league to tight ends. So I think that he's going to be pretty solid. After that, he's going to have a big week, and people aren't even going to be talking about dropping him after that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, man. I love Goddard. I'm huge on picking him up throughout the entire, this entire past couple week stint. I'm like, yo, go get Goddard. Go get Goddard. This guy's going to be a stud. Especially
with Ertz out. I mean, he was performing when Ertz was still on the field. And now with him as the number 1 tight end, I mean, the sky's the limit for him.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. All right, speaking of bye week, so Houston was on bye last week. So they get a road game up against Jacksonville, who's given up the 4th most points to the running back. You got David Johnson over there, who's been a solid play. Do we actually finally get to see a blow-up game from David Johnson this week? Question mark? This makes me nervous.
I think it's got to come eventually. Since the season started, Johnson hasn't seen less than 13 touches in a single game. And that type of volume is going to give him a solid floor, which we've already seen. But yes, I think that we finally see a big week out of David Johnson against Jacksonville this Sunday. We talked about it last week a little bit, but regardless of the game script, Johnson is still getting his. When they're down, he gets carries. When they're up, or I'm sorry. When they're down, he's getting targets, and when he's up, they're getting carries. He hasn't had any multi-touchdown games yet this season, but I think that changes against Jacksonville this Sunday. They're allowing the 4th most points to running backs, and I think Houston's going to have a lot of opportunity to score. So I'm huge on David Johnson this week. I think that he finally blows up for a huge, 2016-esque David Johnson type game.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested to see this one. I haven't been huge on David Johnson, but this is definitely going to make me look a little bit more into it, especially in DFS this upcoming week. All right, let's talk David Johnson, right? Talks a little bit of David Johnson. And I want to switch it over to talk about another running back on the opposing team. James Robinson, baby. He's been a smash play every single week, and I love it. Last week, we dissected his RB11, right, for the rest of the season on Fantasy Pros rankings. Guess what? He's gotten moved up to RB7 since then. It's amazing. I love it.
Hey, since I wrote this yesterday, he's actually up to RB6 now. He's still climbing the ladder.
Oh, God, this is amazing. Where do you think he finishes at the end of the year? Is he going to finish up as a top 6 RB?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a lot more accurate. I think we were all in agreement last week when we said that RB11 ranking was a little bit disrespectful. He had 26 touches in a loss to the Chargers before the bye. So that just shows that he is the definition of game script proof. It's kind of weird seeing him because when you watch him run, he's not a great athlete, but he's got solid vision and he's got good bursts. But The most important thing is he's got a coach that just freaking loves him. And volume is usually a strong indicator of consistency, sometimes even more so than talent. And he's seen over 15 carries in every single game this year. Outside of Kamara, Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, and Derrick Henry, there's no other running back I'd want on my team besides James Robinson.
You just made me think about something.
What's that?
I'm going to look into it real quick. But you just said a coach that loves him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who's the offense coordinator over there?
Is it Gruden? No.
Yeah, it is. It's Gruden.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's him or if it's Marone, but I mean, it's not
Gruden
often that
loves
you see.
These smaller type bowling ball-esque running backs.
Yeah, I mean he's a carbon copy of Fournette. I mean, when you look at their stature, the way that they run the ball, the way that they can catch out of the backfield, they're almost identical football players. The only difference is James Robinson doesn't have the mileage on his legs. So I think the reason they were willing to let Fournette go is because they knew they had something in James Robinson, and they're just going to keep feeding him the rock the same way they fed it to Fournette last year.
That is really interesting. That might make me look into a few things. I like that. Good call, man. I told you guys, I learned something new on these episodes every single week. I tell you what. All right. The thing that makes me nervous over there is Lutton, right? Jake Lutton's coming in, so we're going to see a quarterback change. As Dave, you mentioned, Robinson's best game so far came against the Chargers. So when we look at the Chargers, right, and they host the Raiders this week, Josh Jacobs is coming off of a season-high 31 carries. Is he going to keep that volume up? Is he going to produce, or are they going to try and haul it back a little bit? The Chargers have actually been pretty good so far this year up against the pass, although it has been spotty. They have allowed some big games, but overall, they've allowed teams to run on them while holding the receivers to limited production. So what are you seeing with the Chargers this week? Or what are you seeing with Josh Jacobs this week?
Hopefully I'm back. Am I back?
Oh, yeah. We got him. Crystal clear, baby.
Awesome. I'm so glad I got back on this Jacobs point, because I missed the part earlier when you were talking about Dalvin Cook, and this might be the one guy that has a chance to finish as the RB1 this week due to that matchup. Yeah, so I like his matchup this week, and I like the usage that you're finally seeing out of him. He only has one game this year with less than 10 fantasy points. Last season, he was held under 66 yards just 2 times. All right, now he has 2 games so far this year where he had a little bit less than 71 yards, but there's a magic number of 16 carries. Every time he sees 16 carries, he gets 71 yards or more and finishes as a high-end RB2 or a low-end RB1. So he has a great schedule rest of season. His only tough game against the top defense is going to be against Indy in week 14. So I love Jacobs, and right now he has 20 catches or 18 catches through 7 games. So that projects out to over 40 catches this season. And if he gets 40 catches, that'll be double. It's actually 44 catches. That'll be double the amount of catches that he had all of last season. So that involvement in the passing game raises him up. And I think it cements him as an RB1 going down the stretch.
Yeah, that was really the only knock against Jacobs this offseason, was that he wasn't going to be catching the ball. And, it was all these guys were getting brought in for practices, and they were worried that it was going to, take away from him. But he's shown that he can catch the ball and do something with it. So I think that Jacobs keeps the momentum going this week. The Chargers are 15th in points allowed to running backs. So this matchup doesn't give a ton of advantage in trying to project his numbers. But I do think the Raiders are going to win this game. And when the Raiders win, Jacobs gets touches. He's averaging 13.7 carries in losses, and he's averaging 26.5 carries when they win the game. So he's certainly becoming a lot more matchup dependent than experts predict. Vegas has the Chargers as 1-point favorites this week, but if you look, a lot of the experts, those sharks that are betting, are putting their money on the Raiders money line, actually at 58%. So I think that the Raiders are going to pull out a win this week. And like I said, Jacobs is getting almost twice as many carries when they win the game. So I expect him to keep going this week.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting with the catches. 3 catches, 3 catches, 3 catches, 3 catches, 4 catches. He had 2 games below 3 catches. So adding in that extra, what do you get, like 4 points or so, is a nice little boost in addition to his amount of touches that he's seen on like a regular basis. But yeah, I love Josh Jacobs this week. Obviously, you're playing if you have him, but the Chargers defense, right? It's been very susceptible. So we talked, last week about how Herbert was quarterback 1 for the rest of the season, just because they're going to have to score because teams can run on them. We talked about Mike Williams and his rising value. We also, we brought up a couple different points, but one of our big points that we haven't touched was the Chargers and the run game. right? And their run game. So what are we supposed to make of this backfield? Like, who is the running back to own, and which one are you most likely to start? And I swear to God, if you guys say Tremaine Pope.
Big Pope 35. Fire him up.
No, man, I think with Eckler out, Justin Jackson seems to be the guy to have on your roster over Joshua Kelly. Jackson's outsnapped Kelly in 2 of 3 games since Eckler's been out. And even in week 7, where Kelly did see more snaps, Jackson still saw 5 carries and 5 receptions. So Joshua Kelly, he's been more the third down back since week 1, and Jackson is taking over those early down roles with Eckler out. So those early down roles really give him a safer floor week to week. And I think he's the better option to start amongst the two. Obviously, once Eckler comes back, Jackson probably isn't going to have much value, but Kelly is going to retain that, third down back flex value, at least going forward. But as long as Eckler's out, I think Jackson's probably got the slight edge over Kelly.
I like that. What do you think, Juan?
I agree with Jackson as far as for right now, but even later, I'm not sure, Dave, that I don't agree that he stays and he maintains a little bit of value. Being that he's the third-year guy, and there's a certain amount of trust factor that once Kelly started fumbling, he hasn't seen more than 47% of his snaps. And Jackson has been involved in the passing game because he caught 13.
Even fumbles.
Well, I mean, technically. Lynn thought so. But Jackson's caught 13 balls, so he's a little bit involved in the passing game for 119 yards in those in 2 of the last 3 games. So his next 3 opponents are the Raiders, the Dolphins, and the Jets, and they're all 25th, 26th, and 27th, respectively, in points allowed against the running back. And we just saw Jackson have 15 for 71 and 17 for 89 in 2 of the last 3 games against the Saints and the Broncos. So for now, for sure, it's Jackson. And even going forward, I don't know that he doesn't stay on the field a little bit with Eckler as they slowly bring him back in.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah, I'm going Kelly.
Really? All right.
Yeah, no, he's still going to have a role. And honestly, Justin Jackson's just a poor man version of Austin Eckler. So he might, maintain a role for a little bit. But Kelly is going to be, the complete opposite. Like, he's that change of pace back for Austin Eckler. Now, let's see. If Eckler gets off IR, right, he's definitely the guy to own. That's no question. But when we look at guys coming off of IR, we got Christian McCaffrey, man. He's back this week, baby. He's back. Obviously, he's an RB1 every week. But how much of a role has Mike Davis kind of carved out for himself? Like, is Mike Davis actually going to eat into his touches, or should we just go ahead and drop Mike Davis?
Yeah, I don't know that I'd ever drop the handcuff to one of the top running backs in the league if I could have the roster spot. And he feels like Latavius Murray plus. Like, he has struggled in his last 2 games without CMC, and he had 8.6 and 8.7 in those 2 outings, but he will be a viable handcuff, and he could even be a flex play. You were hinting at, Chase, and I got where you're going with the usage a little bit. And in Joe Brady's offense, I could see CMC lining up outside and in the slot a lot more, and both of them being on the field. And when he has been healthy and he's been on the floor, he gives you a floor of 13.5 fantasy points, and then a ceiling of 29.9, which he probably won't see with CMC there. But with the scarcity at running back and CMC coming back off of injury again, you don't want to rush him back in. I think you'll still see a little bit of usage, and I want to hold on to him.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen Davis get dropped in a couple leagues, and I just can't believe it. I mean, you don't want to drop him. He's shown that he can be a bona fide RB1 without
not going into the playoffs. Not going into the playoffs.
What was that?
Not going into the fantasy playoffs. You don't want to drop him.
No, absolutely not.
This is the stretch where you grab the handcuffs.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, yeah, you know that. Like, he's a weekly starter and just a smash RB1 every single week. And he's an injury away, Christian McCaffrey injury away from being a league winner going forward. In my opinion, he's passed up Alexander Madison and Latavius Murray as the most valuable handcuff to have right now in fantasy football. Even if you don't have McCaffrey, snag Davis off the waiver wire and keep him stashed if he ends up available. But with McCaffrey healthy, I don't know if he's really worth a start. You had mentioned, maybe putting him out wide and stuff like that, but I think that Curtis Samuel kind of fills that role as being that guy that kind of does it all. But instead of that insane 90% plus usage that we saw from McCaffrey every single week last year, I expect that to drop a little bit. So I don't know if Mike Davis has really carved out a big enough role to be a weekly flex player or anything like that, but I think that he does lower McCaffrey's ceiling just a little bit. That being said, McCaffrey's still, a top 3 play.
Man, the Chiefs, man. The Chiefs. Compared to last year, they've been a little bit tougher, when it comes to the matchups up against the running back than they were But yeah, there's no way you're benching McCaffrey, even though he is coming. He's probably going to have a limited snap count. I don't know if you guys saw the story about McCaffrey throwing his red shirt jersey back at the coaching staff when they tried to give it to him last week. Did you guys see that?
That was great. Yeah, he came out in it and then took it off. Yeah, that was...
threw it at the coaches. So, like, I'm not wearing this shit. Yeah,
love it.
The Chiefs, man, they look prime for a Super Bowl run. The Patriots, though, not so much. In this Monday night game, are you starting anyone on the Patriots or the Jets? I mean, these offenses just look brutal. The defenses don't look too much better, but the offenses look bad.
Yeah, man, I got egg on my face. I've been trying to pump up P. Ryan for the last few weeks. At this point, though, I'm off the P. Ryan train. I could care less about Frank Gore. But Jamison Crowder, man, he's leading the league in targets per game. He's seen 11.5 targets per game. He's Darnold's safety valve. He's going to continue to see volume because the Jets are going to keep trailing, and he's going to keep getting his. Going back to last season, he's seen 7+ receptions in 5 straight games. It's kind of weird because when you look, people still have him ranked as a wide receiver 3. I think he's in that wide receiver 2 category right now. But honestly, outside of Jamison Crowder, you might be able to make some sort of argument for Damian Harris, but I'm not really touching anybody else in this game.
What you got, Juan?
I 100%.
Pretty much in the same thing.
Yeah, man, we have to 100% agree on that. But Damian Harris gives you hope. 16 carries for 102 yards, and a few weeks ago against the Chiefs, he had 17 carries for 101 yards. So he has given you those 2 when he's had the opportunity. But can you trust McDaniels to give him 15+ carries so he can give you that work? And the answer for me is no. So Crowder is the only one.
Jacoby Myers is interesting for me. If you need somebody deep, Jacoby Myers could be a play. He saw 10 targets last week.
Unbelievable.
He only caught like 6 or 7 of them and only had like 58 yards. I think it was 58 yards, right?
The volume was there.
6 for 58 or 6 for 56, something like that.
Yeah. So if both Harry and Edelman are out and you need somebody, I think Jacoby Myers could be a good play. Now, back to the guy who, is kind of risky, but I do like. I think that he's kind of running away with the job, pun completely intended. Damian Harris, right? It's tough to trust a Patriots running back. We know that. We've seen that. But come on, let's talk about Sunday night, right? Before we wrap up this game, because it's something as to where, this Bucs Saints game is loaded with talent, just like Damian Harris is. I love it. Love it. No, guys, Damian Harris is a slick play. He's tough to trust. But no, the Bucs Saints game is just absolutely loaded with talent over that side of things. With AB joining the team, Fournette was gobbling up Rojo's touches. This is going to be tough to know who to play because Gronk is returning to form. Who are we trusting over there? Because obviously we have issues trusting Patriots running backs. Would you feel more comfortable trusting a playmaker from the Bucs?
Yeah, I would trust the playmaker that keeps making plays every week, and that's Mike Evans, the one that keeps getting the touchdowns. He keeps getting the red zone look, and it's a low floor to play around with because he hasn't seen the targets and the catches, and the volume hasn't been there. But that touchdown efficiency and the connection with him and Brady, I think he's the only one as far as outside. I don't know the health of Godwin. He's not catching a ball until tomorrow to test that finger to make sure that he's back 100%. And you expect – I think he's going to play. Yeah. If he can catch the ball tomorrow. Arian said he's going to try him catching balls tomorrow, and if he can play, he's going to start him. But
that's crazy.
I mean, AB, that first game against Miami last year gave you, hope that AB comes in and has an instant connection with Tom Brady, and Gronk is on a roll 3 straight games with a touchdown. So that's the kind of player you want to go with too. I don't know. It's another one of those situations where it's like the Chiefs, the rich get richer and they have too many options, and it's hard to pick one guy going forward.
Dude, they could give him the big FU. AB could give the whole league the big FU and come out and have a 200-yard game. It's very possible. We saw it with the Patriots in Week 1. What do you think of Dave?
I'm gonna disagree a little bit, but when we're talking about this situation, I think everybody's gonna disagree because nobody knows what's gonna really happen. I think that Godwin stays locked in as the most consistent. I think he's gonna be a high-end wide receiver too, and I think he remains a solid play. I think Antonio Brown is going to come in and make a name for himself, but I think that he's going to not make a name for himself, but continue his legacy, I guess. But I think he's going to cut into Mike Evans' touches a little bit. AB's a downfield threat, and that's where Mike Evans gets a lot of his. Godwin's ability as a crisp route runner on those high percentage throws are going to keep him involved in the offense regardless of who else is there. So I don't really know what to expect with Antonio Brown. He could be on the waiver in a few weeks, or he could be the number one wide receiver for the rest of the season. Neither would really surprise me, but I think right now Godwin is the guy that I think has the safest floor moving forward.
Yeah, this whole matchup's just all sorts of like screwed up when it comes to trying to figure out who you actually want to play. Because when we look at the other side of the field, we've got Kamara, we've got Tre'Quan Smith, right? We got Michael Thomas. We got Michael Thomas, who should be back possibly, and then we have, of course, Alvin Kamara. Wait, did I already say Kamara?
You did.
Miss Cook.
Jared Cook.
You have Cook. So, when it comes to those guys, who are you trusting over there?
Well, assuming he's healthy, there's really no reason we shouldn't expect Michael Thomas to be a top 3 wide receiver for the rest of the season. There's been all sorts of speculation about his attitude and injuries, but I really hope he can put that to rest this week and just come out and ball like he did last year. If anything, Michael Thomas should just return to his 2019 form, and his presence will likely hurt Alvin Kamara. That's what I think is going to happen when Thomas comes back. Kamara's seeing 9.4 targets per game. Whew. Which is obviously first for running backs by an absolute landslide. I think Zeke was second with like 4.8 or something like that. Whatever it is, Kamara is almost doubling what any other running back is seeing in the passing game right now. So I expect his target share to drop a little bit as MT starts to gobble up those short and easy slant routes that he was known for last year.
I'm going to say pump the brakes on Michael Thomas right now. He in week 1, he played 55 offensive snaps. He got hurt at the very, very tail end of the game on like one of the last drives. Carlton Davis had him at 3 receptions for 17 yards on 5 targets. Carlton Davis is really, really freaking good.
That was a nasty matchup.
And that's the same matchup that we're looking at this week. So I'm going to say pump the brakes on Michael Thomas. What are your thoughts, Juan?
I think we lost Juan.
Oh, did we again?
It looks like it. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a tough matchup. This is probably going to be another, down game for him. But I think for the rest of the season going forward, Michael Thomas is still, a top 3 wide receiver. It's you got to put him up there in conversation with Devontae Adams and DeAndre Hopkins.
So, man, this is tough because the Saints are like so. I don't know if I want who I want to play or if I even want to play them at all. And if I do play them, who do I trust? Like we looked at them in the nail biter right up against the Bears and they won, but it wasn't pretty. So now the Bears get the Titans, who are coming off a huge upset to the Bengals. David Montgomery has been a hot topic in fantasy circles. How are you feeling about Monty in this matchup up against Tennessee?
Well, he's been a very hot topic. It seems like everybody is just like in their trench on one side or the other. Either David Montgomery is awesome and the team is terrible, or David Montgomery is terrible and the team isn't feeding him. But I think we kind of know what he is at this point. David Montgomery is an average running back. He's behind a terrible offensive line, and he sees a lot of volume. All of that added together makes him a low-end RB2 in my opinion. And I know a lot of people are using these evaded tackle stats to make us believe that Montgomery is somehow elite. But when watching the film, most of those broken tackles are really just arm tackles in the backfield. I'm a huge Bears fan. I've watched every Bears game since this guy was drafted, and I can't remember a single time that he's broken a tackle in the secondary. We saw him break away for a season-long 28-yarder last week, and he was easily chased down by a linebacker. He doesn't have that speed. He doesn't have that burst. He doesn't even really have that good of vision. I think a lot of the reason that he's breaking these tackles is because he's running into his own lineman. Somebody's getting one arm on him and then he's breaking that off. But all that being said, he's seeing 18 touches per game and is still worth a weekly start. But I don't think he's got the talent to really ever fall into that RB1 category. No,
and that's kind of my thought on things. Like I'm not allowed to talk about David Montgomery up until tomorrow because I told everybody I would not talk about him for 24 hours. So that's not going to happen. You're not going to get me, Dave. You're not going to get me. I know what you're trying to do. You're not going to get me. All right. I'm not going to talk about David Montgomery.
Yeah.
That's tough, man. Because I love to talk about him. But yeah, it is what it is, man. And that's actually what's going to wrap up our episode for us. So Dave, go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you one more time.
You can find me at the Pregame HQ. You can find me, most importantly, on _. You can find me on Fantasy Pros on their news correspondence desk, and then you can find my personal Twitter account at DKLUGE90. at DKluge90.
Love it, man. This has been fun. This has been a blast.
Hoping for some better connectivity issues next week.
Yeah, poor Juan. Man, he was so excited for this episode.
I know, man, and I learned stuff from him every single week. There's so many times where I'm dug into an opinion, and then Juan says something and just makes me totally reevaluate everything that I thought I knew. So I'm upset that we lost him a little bit. Well,
hopefully he'll be here next week. Yeah, Juan. It's okay, buddy. It's okay. If you guys want to check out Juan of a Kind, make sure you guys go check him out on FF Juan of a Kind on Twitter.
I know he just bought a new house. Maybe it's the new place that he's having some connection with. I'm sure we'll be back up to speed next week.
Yeah, no. I appreciate you guys for coming in. If y'all want to check me out, you guys can find me at FF_intervention. Once again, that's FF_intervention. And you can find Fantasy Interventions page at joinourcircle_. If you guys give that a follow, it will follow you back. Yeah. Thank you guys for tuning in. And thank you guys for letting us intervene with your fantasy football life. We're out.